I'm Marshall Shannon with Ministry Design Concepts. Welcome to our video today, a webinar on implementing your strategic planning. We want to make certain as we review this that we have broken the ministry design process into 4 phases. During the discovery phase, you're going to deal with discovering your core values, your mission, your calling, and your vision, God's vision for your ministry. If you don't do those 3 things well, they are serving as the foundation for your strategic planning. And if you don't have vision clarity and a well-defined mission and very clear core values that you all agree upon, in other words, there's alignment and attunement with them, then you're going to stumble as you go into the strategic plan. You don't want to build a house on a faulty foundation. Neither do you want to build your ministry design on a faulty foundation where you don't have an accurate set of core values that clearly reflects who you are as a congregation in your code, culture, and conduct. A clearly defined mission and vision clarity. The power of preparation and planning is that proper preparation, planning, and processes prevent poor performance. We then move into the design phase where we developed and design your strategic plan. That's where you put together how you're going to carry out your mission so you can reach God's vision for your ministry, His preferred future, your destination, all the while allowing your core values to serve as the foundation for your mission and vision. We then move into the delivery stage. The delivery stage is where you implement your plan. It has been said that the greatest problem in the process of ministry design is implementation. Developing a strategic plan for your ministry is one thing. Making it come to life and happen and carrying through with it, keeping it on track, is another thing entirely. In other words, knowing what's right and doing what's right are 2 different things. Preaching it and practicing it are 2 different things. And so we want you to understand that strategic planning has to be executed to be effective. You wouldn't chart a course for your family vacation, then sit still in your driveway. You're going to go mile marker to mile marker and destination to destination until you reach your vacation place. And so it is with strategic planning. The reason why we developed the plan is so that we could implement it in order to fulfill God's vision for our ministry. We've got to know how we're going to carry out God's mission for our church. And so I want you to look first of all at the importance of execution. First off, it achieves the strategic plan. Well, that's kind of a duh moment, isn't it? But it's going to help you achieve your game plan. You wouldn't come up with a game plan for your soccer team of your son or daughter's team, and you're coaching it, and not come up with a strategic plan to defeat a particular foe, an opposing team, and not show them how to implement it. The whole idea of the game plan is to do what? To win the game. And you cannot win the game without playing it. Number 2, it creates, continues, and builds momentum. Every ministry needs to build momentum. The business world has understood this for centuries, but the church not so quick to understand the value of momentum. Jim Collins in Good to Great talks about the momentum that an organization builds up is like a flywheel, where you start the momentum of this big wheel turning, and it picks up speed until it is generating and easier to continue in moving it forward to accomplish its mission, to carry out its mission. And so it is with churches. A strategic plan, when it is implemented, will create and continue and build momentum. Next, it generates change and fights complacency. There is needed change that comes about spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, relationally, and in your ministry itself. And so a part of life is change. There isn't spiritual growth without change. There isn't moving your ministry forward without change. But you will find, if you have never sought to lead change, that there are levels of resistance to change. Now, consultants and experts have put them into 5 categories. That is the instant adapters to change that is recommended, the early adapters, the regular adapters, the late adapters, and the never adapters. Your strategic plan, when executed, will generate change because you're carrying out a game plan that probably is going to do ministry different than what you were doing it. Because what did Einstein say was the definition of insanity? And that was doing the same thing over and over again the same way and expecting a different result. The second thing that it does, along with generating needed change in your ministry, is it will help you fight complacency. It will help you fight complacency. Here's the next thing. It will keep everyone on course. Executing the plan will help keep everyone on course. It'll keep them on track instead of derailing them. Have you ever seen a long train derailed? It's a wreck. It's a mess. It's an unbelievable task to clean it up, repair the cars and the diesel engines and locomotives, and to get them back on the track and get your staff and everything back in there and get it moving again. So you don't want your ministry derailing. Use your strategic plan and execute it, implement it, put it into action so that it keeps everyone on track, keeps them on course. It also builds faith. When you implement your strategic plan, your congregation and your staff are going to see the plan come together, and they're going to see God at work. It builds confidence, it builds faith, and builds spiritual faith, and builds confidence in the plan when it is implemented, because it's going to accomplish what you started out to accomplish. It's going to do your people good. It creates a tool to self-discipline the congregation. It develops a tool so that you will stay on time. Set deadlines and follow the deadlines and work to meet the deadlines. Let's go to the duty of execution. Whose responsibility is it to implement the plan? Well, let's just go down through them and the part they play. The senior pastor. Pastor, if you're not enthusiastic about your strategic planning process and implementing it, if you don't believe that God's in it and that it's going to do your church good, your congregation good, and your community good, and the world good, that God is using you and your congregation to change the world, to bring them to faith in Christ, if you don't believe in it, then don't expect those under your leadership to carry through with it, to exhaust themselves and leave no stone uncovered in seeking to implement it. You've got to believe in the strategic planning process and the implementation, putting it into action. You have to lead. The pastoral staff had better be on board with the senior pastor, that they have their individual parts as they oversee in your organizational chart, in the chain of command. They're overseeing different ministry directors and ministries. They've got to be on board. That's why they need to be a part of the development and the creation of your strategic plan. All the players brought together. Your pastoral staff has to fall underneath the senior pastor in order to carry out their particular role in overseeing the different ministries assigned to them, if that's how you put your pastoral staff together. The support staff. You've got people who are helping each pastor on your staff to carry out and make them successful. They may be some of the most key people in the whole process, is your administrative staff who are supporting your pastors. The lay leadership team, whether you're calling them elders or deacons or a board or stewards or some other designated name, your lay leadership team has a responsibility, because many of them may be ministry directors, are heavily involved as foot soldiers in a ministry or two, and they have to buy into this, support it, and they've got to put it, leave nothing on the field. They've got to expend themselves to make this happen. You better have them involved in the creation of your strategic plan. When it comes time to execute, you may not get their support. The strategic plan team, the strategic planning team that has helped you put this together, they've got to see to it that it is carried out. The ministry leaders over every ministry has got to be willing and know their part in carrying out the plan. So the duty of execution goes from the very top of your organization, the key servant leader, the senior pastor, to his team of pastors, to the support staff that is supporting the senior pastor and the pastoral staff, to the lay leadership team, the governing body of your church, to the strategic planning team, to your ministry leaders, to your volunteer workforce. They all have a duty to execute the plan. Ministry is a team sport, a team effort. Don't leave anyone out of the execution. Make certain you assign each role and duty that they have to carry it out. Then let's talk about the exercise of execution. The first thing you're going to have to do is remove the obstacles. Remove the obstacles that are stopping you from freely implementing the game plan. So you've got to define what an obstacle is. You've got to agree on that. You've got to identify the obstacles after you've defined them. You've got to deal with these obstacles, and you've got to do that in a biblical way and as a team. Let me encourage you to do something right here. Become proactive early in the days of your ministry design process so you gain buy-in from the congregation and from your leadership team. You want to identify any never adapters that we just talked about, the 5 groups of people, how they respond to change as it is presented to them. You want to identify the late adapters and the never adapters on the front end of this, so you want to be proactive. Well, you're going to start through this process, and I'll be very surprised if you don't have some barriers to execution, things that want to derail you right at the start. You look at them and say, well, this is a difficulty, this is a barrier, this is an obstacle, and it could be any number of things that are keeping you from making this happen. So as you identify obstacles, you may find they could be policies, practices that you have, procedures, people on your staff, in your leadership team, or in your congregation, personnel, paid staff that are their leaders, status quo, complacency, that's a viral bug that can run through your church, sacred cows, the resistance to change, political interest, other interests that they may have. You have to identify the obstacles and then deal with them in a biblical way and as a ministry team. And I'm telling you to be proactive and know your plan on having barriers and obstacles to the implementation of your game plan. And then the second step of exercise is that you want to proceed with the implementation. So you're going to create execution goals. And SMART goals are those that are specific, measurable, obtainable, realistic, and timely. They are specific. Is the goal particular enough to be clear? Measurable. Is there a way to measure the success of the goal that you're setting? As you move toward implementation and you're going to create goals, SMART goals, are they specific and measurable? Are they attainable? Can they be accomplished? Are they realistic? Is someone going to look and say that can't be done? Can you judge that they are obtainable? It's realistic to write them down. Are they realistically written? And then last, Are they timely? Is there a timeline associated to the goal to ensure a completion? Set a deadline date. Along with SMART goals, church goals should be an outcome of strategy and written to help move the organization forward by focusing on increasingly maybe your weekly offerings or improving programs or strengthening leaders or building your volunteer work base or working on individual ministries, reducing the cost and improving the experience for your congregation or your volunteers or your employees. And so you want to set up goals. And you may set up a goal that increases your weekly church volunteer participation. You want to move it from 20% to 30%. You want to reduce budget expenditures, how you're spending the money, and find better ways, innovative ways to do ministry better so you're effective and efficient and cost effective. You want to establish goals to train your volunteer leadership. Maybe you want to increase the number of people who are involved in leadership from 5% to 8%. And so as you write out these goals, you want to make certain that they are smart, that they're going to be effective. The next thing you're going to do is create execution steps. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 for each part. For each goal, for each part of your ministry, in each goal that you've set for a ministry, how are they going to achieve the goal? Then you've got to determine execution priorities. You probably can't give attention to everything right away. You've got to set up some priorities as to which steps go first, second, third, and fourth. Which set are you going to pay attention to reach which goals as a priority? We're all forced to make decisions on setting priorities for ministry. Continuing with the implementation as you proceed is you develop a chain of command. You create an organizational chart. Your organizational chart shows your chain of command. If you look at the resources we're providing for you with this webinar, you will see a number of resource documents and then books and perhaps some websites. As you look down there, and those resources may grow over time, you'll see an example of a chain of command and organizational chart. You want to assign duties. People need to know what the parameters are and what's required of them within their assigned duties. You want to set deadlines so that they can know when they have to reach the goal, when they have to carry out each responsibility. Then, by all means, communicate until you're sick of hearing yourself say it. And about the time that you think people are ready to cast stones at you, they're probably just beginning to hear and understand the importance of what you're saying. Leaders, I find, often say, well, I'm afraid to say it again. I've said it over and over again. I want to tell you to keep saying it over and over and over again. Over-communicate. Find 5 different ways to communicate using your social media platform, your pulpit, email, any way you can, written cards or handout or brochures, to keep the strategic plan in front of them so that everyone has a way to make this happen. When you assign duties and set deadlines, let me encourage you to set up monitoring and management teams so that they have oversight and they know that they're going to be evaluated, which is another webinar that is going to follow this one. There are a set of things that you can follow as you look at your assigned duties to make certain that every part of your strategy for every ministry and goal that you set, for every objective you assign, that you know that you're going to have the right people, the right personnel, the right place, the right priorities, the right money, the right budget, the right assignments, and you look to that handout that is a part of this webinar, and you'll see an organizational checklist to help you make certain as you check off this checklist for every ministry, it will serve as a checklist to make certain you've covered all the bases in your strategic planning. So I'm Marshall Shannon, your ministry design coach with Ministry Design Training and Ministry Design Concepts. You can reach me at this email or at either one of these phone numbers so that we might give you individual help, if you so desire, to further your ministry as you are going to execute your strategic plan.